You think being single means being lonely. What if it's actually the VIP section of your life? You remembered all the times you had accepted that silence before. The nights he read your messages and replied hours later, if at all. You told yourself he was busy. You always made excuses for him. When you were sick, he didn't come. He said he would call back, but never did. You lay in bed, weak and disappointed, still defending him in your heart. He canceled plans often, sometimes at the last minute. You waited dressed and ready, then undressed quietly and told yourself love required patience. When you needed emotional support, he changed the topic. When you cried, he said you were too sensitive. You learned to swallow your pain to keep the peace. You paid your own bills, carried your own stress, and still showed up for him. Yet when you needed help, he reminded you he had his own problems. He criticized your dreams, laughed at your ideas, and compared you to others. You smiled through it, thinking love meant endurance. When he was happy, you were happy. When he was angry or distant, you were shut out. You learned to walk on emotional eggshells. You stayed because you were afraid of starting over. You believed being alone was worse than being disrespected. The fact that you loved him dearly made you accept everything, thinking there were no better feelings than this. One silent day, the unanswered message connected everything. You finally saw the pattern you had been calling love. You didn't leave loudly. You simply stopped accepting less. You chose singleness because you were tired of shrinking, tired of explaining your worth, tired of begging for basic care. Being single became your healing, your protection, your space to breathe. You learned that love should not feel like survival. Singleness was not a punishment. It was clarity. It was the VIP section where you finally chose yourself. That night, you made a decision. You stopped calling. You stopped explaining. You turned off your phone and sat alone with your thoughts. For the first time, you did not run back to him or to people who had already shown you who they were. The next morning, you cleared your space. You deleted old messages, removed numbers that kept you emotionally stuck, and unfollowed accounts that made you feel behind in life. It was painful, but it was honest. You wrote down the ways you had depended on others, emotionally, financially, mentally. Seeing it on paper hurt more than the breakup itself. You decided to stay single, not because you hated love, but because you needed yourself back. You promised not to enter another relationship until you could stand on your own. You started handling your problems alone. When money was tight, you budgeted and learned. When you were sad, you sat with the feeling instead of escaping into people. You created routines that didn't involve anyone else. Morning walks, quiet nights, small goals that belonged only to you. You stopped waiting for texts to feel important. You stopped tying your mood to someone else's attention. When loneliness came, you didn't fight it. You listened to it. It showed you where you needed healing. Being single gave you space to grow without performing. No pressure to be chosen. No fear of being replaced. You learned to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Boundaries became your protection. Slowly, you noticed a change. You felt calmer, stronger, more grounded. Singleness was not empty. It was full of lessons. You discovered your worth without applause, your peace without permission. People became additions, not lifelines. Being single was not a waiting room for your life to begin. It was the VIP section where you met yourself fully. Now, if love comes, it will meet a woman who is already whole. If this resonates with you, then you are not alone. Like, subscribe so you don't miss our next video. Tell us your experience.